episode 6 of the F2P 30 Crest journey, I upgraded my main DPS characters, cleared the experiment zone in the tower, and unlocked the hazard zone, which is the main goal of this playthrough. So welcome to episode 7, where we finally take on the resettable part of the tower. Before attempting the hazard zone, I still had one day left before the tower reset, so I used that time to grind more lustrous tides for more pulls on the standard weapon banner. There are still a few more sources of lustrous tides I haven't claimed yet. The first is from Chenpi, who trades Sodden's caskets for various rewards. Since I've been exploring Jinzhou, I should have enough to clear out most of his stock. Then I claimed one from the free battle pass, which brought me to 10 lustrous tides, just enough for another 10 pull. Originally, I was aiming for the 5-star standard sword, but since I'm building Danjin as a DPS, and already have a Rover at level 70 as a quick swap ult, I figured Encore's team needed a bit more firepower, so I switched to the banner for the 5-star Artificer instead. Unfortunately, I didn't get the 5-star Artificer in this 10 pull, which means it's lurking somewhere in the last 10 pull. No way I'm hitting hard pity, right? Anyway, with the 71st pull being a bust, it's time to grab some more lustrous tides from another source, the Point Shop. To farm the currency for this shop, aka data sets, I need to defeat some hologram bosses. For new players, I recommend Tempest Mephis, Impermanent Heron, or Felian Berengal, because they're the easier ones to handle. For me, I decided to take on Tempest Mephis as this boss can be staggered and has quite a few parryable attacks. Not sure when they made him this easy to stagger, but I ain't complaining. There isn't much to cover about this boss, at least for difficulties 1 to 3 of the hologram, since they're pretty similar to their world boss counterparts. So instead, I'll share some of the combat techs I like to use. For most characters, when I see the parry circle, I like to time my attacks to hit the parry and immediately press the dodge button right after. If I fail the parry, at least I can rely on the dodge for the iframes to avoid damage. You might have seen people showing off parry counterattacks, perfectly landing both the parry and counter from a parryable attack. But for the life of me, I just can't pull that off. So I stick to my next best option, which is this technique. Another thing I like to do with this team is swapping to Verena after Rover casts his Resonance skill. This lets me achieve 2 things. Rover stays on the field to finish his Resonance skill animation, and I can jump straight into Verena's basic attack 3. In case you missed it, here's the slowed down version. By starting from basic attack 3, I only need to attack 2 more times to charge up a bar on Verena's Forte gauge, skipping her first to basic attack sequence, which saves a lot of time. If you plan to switch back to Rover, keep in mind that only certain buffs are persistent. Some buffs, like Sanhua's or Danjin's outro, will disappear once you swap the character off-field. So this tactic depends on how you use your DPS and your team comp. Now, moving on to level 70 Mephis. This is where things get wild. He starts tag teaming with his doppelganger, making the fight way more chaotic. This doppelganger loves to pop out of nowhere and catch you lacking. My advice is to fight the Thundering Mephis without target lock and fight near the center of the arena. This way, you're likely to have a better view of the clone when it spawns in for an attack. Another handy resonator for this fight is Yang Yang. Her ult can parry those pesky attacks from Thundering Mephis and its clones, saving you a lot of headaches during the battle. Her outro also works as a battery for the incoming resonator, which is super helpful especially in the early game when you're still building your echoes and might not have enough energy regen to cast your ult in a single rotation. The next tech can be a lifesaver when you're in a pinch and can't dodge an incoming boss attack. Sometimes, casting your ult stops everything around you for a brief moment, letting you regain your bearings. Other times, it can act as a long iframe, letting you sit through any incoming attacks without taking damage during the ult animation. The last one isn't exactly a tech, but more of a personal preference. When I use the Crownless Echo, I sometimes like to go for the full combo, especially against enemies that move around a lot. Due to its really good tracking, it makes it easier to follow the enemy without needing to rely on target lock. I hope that the text I find useful can also help anyone who is struggling against the hologram bosses. Anyways, with difficulty for Mephis cleared, I've got enough data sets to claim all the Luster's tides from the hologram store. Time to head back to the banner.
Yes! 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 Yes!
You know what they say, greatness is only one pull away. After 72 pulls, I finally got the 5-star Artificer. After upgrading the Artificer to level 70, my team is finally ready for a test run in the tower. Let's see what we're missing to conquer it. Right now in the Resonant Tower, there's a Havoc damage buff, which is perfect for the Dungeon Rover team I'm building since they're both Havoc. So, naturally, I'm going to play into their strengths and make full use of that buff. For this floor, there's nothing too special to note, so I just focused on my rotations. But I already noticed two major problems. First, Dungeon is lacking damage, which is going to be an issue later on as enemies get tankier. The second problem is by Z. She needs more energy regen. I can't get her ult up every rotation, which leads to some long, drawn-out rotations while I charge up her concerto. Because of these two major flaws, I don't expect to get too far into the tower. Floor 3 is probably going to be my limit for the Resonant Tower. In the second room, target the small Whisperins and let the Clangbang chase you in the first wave. Watch out for its bouncing attacks and the self-explosion after it breaks its ice armor. It'll run in circles before going kaboom. Repeat the process in Wave 2, but now watch out for the Stonewall Bracer charging at you occasionally. Just like that, another 3 Crest in Room 2 of Resonant Tower. But Room 3 will be a challenge since I don't have enough damage to fully clear. In addition, there's this lanky Fraxidus enemy who kept running away from me. So, for Wave 1 of Room 3, my approach is to target lock the pesky Fraxidus enemy, chase after him, and let his companions catch up to me instead. There are 2 ways to catch up to this enemy. One is using intro skills to close the gap, which is what I did here. Another method is using Crownless, which can cover more distance when there's a target to attack. It's also ideal to use Rover's ult when all 3 enemies are grouped together, as I need to make the most of every chance to land my biggest attack efficiently. Notice how the lack of energy regen on Baizi really impacts my rotation, costing me extra seconds to charge up her concerto, which isn't ideal. On top of needing to level up Dungeon, I also have to spend time familiarizing myself with her movesets so they become second nature. That way, I won't be stuck trying to remember her combos mid-fight. After handling the first wave of Fraxidus enemies, the second wave has 2 Flautists. I'll be honest, I don't have the best strategy for them here since on my main account, I just nuke them with female Rover and move on to the next floor. Though, I noticed that if you line them up like this, it's possible to group them together since they'll try to move away from you. I could try to use that to my advantage in my next run, when I come back with stronger resonators and better gear. For now, I'll have to settle for 1 Crest in Room 3. With my Dungeon Rover team hitting their limit in the Resonant Tower, it's time to start climbing the Echoing Tower with Encore's team. In Floor 1, I focused my fire on the Exile Technician, aka the Exile Girl, and let the Exile Leader step into the line of my fire while he chases me. Well, that's the downside of having a level 1 Sinhua. Any random attack can take her out of commission. Aside from this minor hiccup, I cleared the floor easily by focusing on my rotations while handling the Exile Technician. After dealing with the Technician, only the injured leader remained, so I quickly took him down and cleared Floor 1 with 3 Crests. On towards Floor 2. My experiences with this floor taught me to target lock the Glacio Dreadmane and take it down quickly before it causes problems. This vault is the group's DPS, and it's a scary one. It has several high damage moves that I sometimes fail to dodge, which can lead to things spiraling out of control. One attack to watch out for is a Howling attack, which doubles as an offensive move. Unlike other wolves whose howls lack a hitbox, the Glacio Dreadmane's howl includes one. So avoid blindly attacking when it howls, or you'll end up with a severely injured Resonator. I struggled a bit with this floor since Sanhua kept dying, which hurt Encore's DPS. So I swapped Sanhua for Yang Yang, and it worked wonders. Look at the grouping capability of her ult. Honestly, she's a pretty solid support. I might consider building her as a DPS in the future to clear the early tower floors if I don't get other Resonators, but we'll see. With Yang Yang on the team and her ult providing crowd control, Encore could focus on dealing damage instead of dodging attacks. This gave me more opportunities to dish out damage, letting me barely clear the floor with 3 crests. Now it's time to swap Sanhua back onto the team for floor 3. This floor is less chaotic than floor 2, with fewer enemies to handle.
Okay.
I never said it was easier though. If you're suffering from a case of skill issue like I did here, things can still go wrong. Anyways, for floor 3, you want to focus on the 2 tambourinists in the backline. They'll spawn a lot of floating projectiles that can disrupt the combat flow, forcing you to constantly dodge or avoid areas covered with DOT fields. For example, look at all these purple orbs floating around the arena that eventually turn into DOT fields. These tambourinists can also spawn the orbs right under you, which can get pretty annoying to deal with. Another thing you need to watch out for on this floor are the tiny purple projectiles that slowly home in on you. They're tricky to spot, especially with all the ongoing battles and incoming attacks from the enemies. Once you've dealt with the tambourinists, the fight gets a lot easier since the Chasm Guardian's moveset is pretty predictable. And that's how I cleared floor 3 with 2 crests. In total, I managed to get 15 crests on my first run in the Tower of Adversity. Not bad at all, considering my main DPS are only level 70. However, getting the last 15 crests will be way harder. Here's what I'll probably need to do. Level up my main DPS more. I'm guessing level 90 is where I can finally hit 30 crests. Level up my sub DPS and supports for a bit more damage, which I'll need when facing bosses. Figure out which other Resonators to raise. Once my dungeon and Encore teams can handle the big 4 floors, I'll need these other Resonators to step in and clear the earlier floors, since each Resonator has limited stamina. And with that, we conclude episode 7 of the F2P 30 Crest journey with 15 crests achieved in the Hazard Zone Tower. Hope you all enjoyed the video and maybe picked up a few tips to help with clearing the tower. As always, thanks for watching and happy gaming, Rovers!